Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Narcotics News. In this episode, we're joined by some very special guests from the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. We're joined by Sarah Stewart, Director of Public Affairs, Allan Young, Director of OCTIC, and Jared Fry, the TLO Coordinator. We're discussing a very important topic today. We're excited to talk about it. It's going to be the ProtectOK app and all the functions that the app has. So thank you all for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We normally do audio only, so this is a very special episode. So if you would like to see the video version, please check it out on our YouTube channel. I think it's like at OK Bureau of Narcotics. Yeah. Check it out, of course, because that's fun. You can watch the video version. Okay, well, for the less knowledgeable of us in the room, which is myself, definitely included, what exactly is OCTIC?
So OCTIC is the state's fusion center. It was recently renamed a couple years ago by the governor to the Oklahoma Terrorism Intelligence Center whenever it was moved from OSBI to DPS. And so fusion centers came about after 9/11. They did the 9/11 Commission report and tried to figure out how 9/11 happened. And Congress said, hey, we weren't sharing information. The FBI, CIA weren't sharing information. Everybody had good pieces of information, but they weren't communicating. So out of that came the Department of Homeland Security, TSA, and fusion centers. And so each state has a dedicated fusion center, and ours has historically been housed under OSBI. And then again, a couple years ago, the governor moved it to DPS and renamed it the Oklahoma Terrorism Intelligence Center.
So it's DPS, not OHP. I was thinking about your Instagram. Is it DPS?
So Oklahoma Highway Patrol is actually a part of Department of Public Safety. So
Right.
Department of Public
Sorry
Safety
about that.
houses all of it, and then Oklahoma Highway
I
Patrol
was
is
looking at
part of
y'all's
it.
Instagram earlier, so I was just thinking that. So special guest from DPS. Sorry about that.
Yes, that's okay. It both work.
Well, yeah, it's really awesome to hear. And I guess, are other states doing it as well? Do they have their own version of the app?
Yes, of the app, yeah. So I know Florida uses the same app platform that we do, Rave, the platform, and so theirs is just named differently. But most states, yes, have the See Something, Say Something platform where they're reporting suspicious activity.
That's cool. What are all the functions of the app?
Yeah, so the app's called ProtectOK, and anyone can download it from the App Store, Play Store, and put that Android or iPhone on there. And then it's very simple. It's set up a lot like how you do a social media post. There's not a lot of icons on the app. You open it up, and then you can submit a tip, and it can be under different categories, school-related, not school-related. And then you just go through filling out prompts that it asks you. You can submit that as anonymous, or you can put all your information. If you want to report that way, leave your contact information where we can get back with you. You can upload photos, videos. It's a very beneficial tool.
That's awesome. And there's other things on the app as well, right? Not only the tips, it has like the resource boxes, the toolbox or something like that.
You can track somebody's walk. If you wanted to go for a walk or a run at night, you can put in there, hey, track my walk, and send it to somebody, and they can just kind of monitor your location and where you're at. And so yes, there's different tools to this app as well.
That's awesome. I mean, I graduated from college like last year, and of course they have those big what are they called? The buttons, like safety buttons on campus. Which, of course, if you're in doubt, always use them.
Mm-hmm.
But since they're so not used, they have like spiders in them, so people don't really want to use They will, of course, they need to, but it's like everyone jokes about. It's like you don't, unless you really need to, you don't want to put your hand in that box because there's like definitely things living in there.
Yeah.
So it's great to have another resource for that for students as well, because I know that they mentioned that. Of course, they have like, I think my school had like a card that was like call for someone to help you. If you want someone to help you walk from somewhere at night.
Escort you to your car and things
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
So that's a really great resource, especially for students too.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's got a phone. It's right there. It's in your pocket. You can open it up, submit a tip, and especially school-age kids that have cell phones. We want everyone in Oklahoma to download the app. But if you're a 15-year-old in a school, 16-year-old, you know everything going on in the school that maybe the teachers don't know about, or coaches or administrators, and that's the front line of getting information in, is whoever hears it first to submit it on the app. So it's, it could be someone in the community, it could be a kid in school, it could be law enforcement can use it and submit stuff on there for suspicious activity reports. I mean, it can be used a lot of different ways.
When I was in school, there actually was an incident where someone was on campus. It wasn't campus per se, it was at a high school, but there was someone who was walking around like in the buildings, and of course, none of the kids told anyone. They were all snapping at each other. And luckily a teacher saw over their shoulder that someone was snapping about it, and that's the only reason that they knew what was happening. And that person was escorted off. Luckily nothing happened, but definitely a scenario where it would have been helpful because they were not communicating that to teachers. So
These kids are very good about discreetly taking pictures or videos.
yeah,
there's not
out the
much-
window you can see them. Yeah.
That's right. There's not much that goes on that they don't, record or whatever. So this is a perfect platform. Upload those pictures, videos, and that way you don't have to, necessarily give the best description from memory. You've got that picture or video. Here's what we saw, and upload that to us. And so it's a great example.
I think Makayla had a question about uploading.
Yeah, so Snapchat has been a big thing in a lot of teens here, especially now with everything going on. And they post everything now. And I talk about that in a lot of my presentations. You have some kids that know what's going on and want to speak out, but they're scared to, mainly because, Snapchat, if they do screenshot or they do video record a story, it sends them a notification on who is doing it. So at that point, they're no longer anonymous. So what would you recommend as far as okay, I want to send this proof, but I'm scared at that point, I don't want them to know I'm doing it.
Yeah. We have got several, I guess you would say, screenshots of either Snapchat post or Instagram. And again, these kids are creative. They'll screen record. There's ways to get around,
Right.
notifying that person that you screenshot it, or they'll use another phone to record it or another phone to take a picture. If not, they know who's making that. They've got the, even after they exit out of it, they've got that handle name or screen name of that person. Just give us whatever information you can. This person on Snapchat with this screen name said this, and here's my information if you want more information, from me, or as much information as we can get, the better. But anything is better than nothing. Right?
Yeah, because that was actually one of my questions, because I was like, if, for example, someone doesn't have another phone to take a picture of, like at work I have 2 phones, so it's very easy if I have something to take a picture of, you just use the other one.
Yep.
But if students, maybe they don't have a lot of close friends, or they don't have the ability to grab that phone in that moment, and if they miss it, a replay will also notify that they are replaying that information. So if they manage to unfortunately miss that image, is it still worth reporting the handle?
Absolutely, and we don't need a picture. We're just saying anything extra is great. But if you don't have a picture, if you miss that opportunity to screenshot it or whatever, that's no different than overhearing someone talk about it, right? You're just reporting what you overheard or oversaw, and getting us all the information that you can. So if that includes a screen name, if that includes a person's name, if that includes who they told, whatever information you can get, we'll take whatever we can get. So
I think that's great for kids, because I think a lot of times they're afraid that once that Snapchat disappears, that if they don't have any kind of evidence that it was there, that it's not going to do anything.
right.
So knowing that they can submit that and that it will still have some sort of
Yes.
prompt, some sort of progress from just that information.
Yeah, and we've seen some tips come in. The kids, even if they don't have a phone, if it's not a Snapchat, if it's something they heard someone else at school say, go home, them telling their parents. One of the tips came in, I won't say the school because it's all been dealt with, but after a football practice, a parent was talking to their kid who was at the practice, and then the parent submitted the tip, said, my kid heard this at practice, and that led to interviews of the kid who was reported. We'd contact the school resource officer. Hypothetically, if that kid was talking about, hey, I have a gun, I have access, I'm going to bring it to school. If he told a friend that, hypothetically, that kid, he doesn't have to have a Snapchat or a picture of the gun or proof the kid's saying it. He can just report it. If the child doesn't want to do it, or if they're younger, like I have a 3rd grade daughter, she doesn't have a phone. Parents communicate with your kids. That's huge. If the kid comes home and tells a parent take it serious and don't just dismiss it as these kids talking, and go ahead and get on the app and report that information, because that could be crucial in interviewing that kid before they get on a bus or get to school. And kids are used to kind of interacting with this, kind of the sad reality with these school shootings. All 3 of my kids are in school, and they do armed intruder drills. So the kids are aware, even at a young age, they're aware of a tornado drill, fire drill, and armed intruder drill. But getting the information out as soon as possible to get ahead of any type of event like what happened yesterday in Wisconsin. We want to get ahead of it before it happens. And we do that by this information coming in mostly from the community.
And I think that's the whole point of the app, is making it as easy as possible, as accessible as possible for people. Because we've had a mechanism for this in our state for a while. It's called CSAY OK. But it was a website, and you had to go to the website to report your tip. Well, it wasn't really being utilized, and so we're like, well, everybody has their phone in their hands at all times. It's accessible, so making this as easy as possible. And we don't want people to be afraid to report something. And say, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. It's okay, go ahead and report it, and then that allows the proper people, we can get to the proper authorities to investigate it and make sure. And if it turns out to be nothing, great. If it doesn't, maybe you've passed on some crucial information.
Right. I think the fact that it's so convenient is a very, very important touch, and it's great that it's around right now.
Yes.
And it can help some of these events like what happened yesterday with the school lockdowns. Several months ago, we had all the Snapchat kind of tips coming in through OCTIC, and a lot of these screenshots are shared and circulated through multiple schools. It's someone who's wanting to cause panic, strain resources, create confusion, and this bad actor who could be, in another country is submitting these like Snapchat threats, and then people catch those and send them in, and then they can get circulated, and then we'll pass those out. So it might be a tip that was dealt with 3 days before in Kansas, that when people share it, now we can get in touch with that school and be like, hey, this is the exact Snapchat threat we saw from our partners in Kansas 3 days before, and you guys can respond appropriately and maybe de-escalate a little bit, still take it serious, but give that school or that law enforcement agency in that area more tools on responding to that.
Yeah. We've had several of those recently where there have been a TikTok that's went viral, that started in another state and then a few days later ends up circulating in Oklahoma. So it's not just Snapchat, it could be Instagram or TikTok or whatever the case is. And we've also found that these kids specifically they're afraid to go tell a teacher because they don't want to be, the rat. They don't want to be the one that gets beaten up. And so this is the perfect avenue. They can report it. No one's going to know that they're the ones that reported it, but it's going to get handled and taken care of. And then no one's the rat. No one gets beat up. No one gets ostracized for reporting this. So perfect avenue for them.
So we're talking about, mentioned submitting tips. So I looked on the fields that are available, and some of the terminology seems to have a little bit of overlap. So I was wondering exactly how to define some of those terms, that have altercation versus violence, for example. How necessary is it to differentiate between those when you submit a tip?
I think the important thing is, and we didn't have, we couldn't put every option out there. What we wanted to do is hit on some of the big indicators that are defined criminal activity that could have a potential nexus to terrorism with more information. Things like breaching, theft, cyber attacks, those things that are defined criminal activity, but with more information that would come in those details, maybe there's a nexus to terrorism. So whatever category you pick, as long as you're putting those details in there, that'll give us more information to vet that and then see if, what it is exactly. So, and we've got several of those where sadly it could be, hey, my mom and dad are fighting and this is what's going on or whatever, and it's a kid that just, may have hit the wrong, report, but in those details we can clearly see what's going on that'll allow us to respond accordingly. And so, the thing is the more details the better. And so this is, again, not an emergency situation where you're calling 911, so you should have the time to, hopefully upload a picture and put all the details in, the location and the critical stuff that we want, or you think that we need to know. And so that's going to help us in the end vet that and get that to where it needs to be.
I think I looked on the app too, and they have some additional phone numbers, so that's really helpful for people who might have a mental health emergency that's not necessarily considered. What exactly is the criteria for a tip that you would want submitted to that?
It's very broad. I don't know, me personally, I wouldn't want to put a lot of criteria on it because I don't want to discourage someone if they see categories and they feel like maybe their tip doesn't fit a category. I don't want to discourage someone from submitting information in. Because on the back end, you have a trained intel analyst who's getting it. So if it's labeled incorrectly, if it comes in the wrong category, that's all fine. They're going to sort it out and fix it. Because, let's say you're driving home from work and you see someone with bolt cutters breaking into a substation. They're cutting a lock at a substation. That's probably not a worker. That might not be a 911 call. And you might, that'd be something definitely to put on ProtectOK. That's critical infrastructure. Someone is messing with, they're using bolt cutters. They shouldn't be doing that. But it might be an interesting category to put that in. Any category is going to work. Put the information, location. And then the analyst on the other end, they're going to know exactly what to do and who to report that to.
So I suppose, of course, try your best to fill it out, but the details are what really matters for the analysts.
Yes, and we really want to know, why is it suspicious, and what are you seeing, or what are these things that made you report this as being suspicious, and why is it suspicious? Because again, we need to articulate that this either is a crime, or, for example, like Derek said, we don't know on our end, what could be the missing puzzle piece that another agency is looking to solve a homicide investigation. If you've ever watched Dateline or any of these murder mystery shows, you'll always see that, a piece comes in later, and it could be, hey, this person in this neighborhood saw a vehicle down at the end of the street that didn't belong there, had been parked there for a day or two, and it ends up being, involved in this murder or whatever the case is. So we don't know the information that we get that ends up being the missing puzzle piece to solve a homicide or, an abduction or whatever the case is. So any information we get is good, and we'll push it out. And then that agency that we send it to, they can verify, does this help them, does it not, meet? Because again, it may be something that's suspicious to this person, but I see it and I'm like, yeah, this is nothing. But I send it to the agency and they're like, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for, right? So we don't know what that could be. But to the beholder, right, it's why is it suspicious to them? It's not normal based on their day-to-day interactions wherever they're at, or the circumstances they're in. So that articulation of why is it suspicious, is obviously helpful.
I think it's really cool to think about like a puzzle, like you said, like it's not only benefiting like just DPS or just OHP, right? But that it can actually benefit all the police departments, local police departments, other agencies too, because they're also investigating cases. So that is a really cool part of it, that it's not just like one particular crime, not just like one particular issue, but that they could actually benefit other cases as well. You mentioned it earlier too with like some of these trends starting in other states that then appear in Oklahoma, and that's easier to hopefully solve them if you know that another state's already been working on that, right? But what trends have you all been noticing with the app?
As far as some of the tips and things that have came in, we've seen, crimes against children. We've seen the school threats have really been highlighted. August and September, they were coming in, pretty hot and heavy there recently. But that's the trends that we see are I would say, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, these kids that anything they see, they're going to spread it like wildfire, right? And that's how it gets from California to Oklahoma in a couple of days. And, they're not trying to vet any information or making sure that there's any truth to anything. They're just spreading it. They send it to one person who sends it to 10 people who sends it, and so it quickly will spiral out of control. And just like we saw yesterday, there were these hoax calls coming in to Tulsa and Tuttle and all these different schools of an active shooter. And so, when all these things come in, our analysts are trying to get that information, seeing what's real, what's not, and helping the law enforcement, respond accordingly. So the kids, what we've seen, they're just going to share anything, right? They're not going to try to make sure anything is real or legit or do any type of research whatsoever. And Derek used a great example earlier about, it could be somebody that says, I'm going to MHS tomorrow to do a shooting. Well, that could be, Mustang in Oklahoma, or that could be, Maryland, we don't know. And so just sharing that information, our analysts can do stuff kind of in the background to see, exactly where this came from. And then we have a national database that we share with all the other fusion centers that we put these threats and tips in, where we can quickly, look and see, have we seen this before? So that also helps us, if we haven't, then did this originate from Oklahoma? Is this a legit, credible tip? And then that allows us again to start doing some more analyst, activity on that, and then pushing that back out to the law enforcement in the field.
Well, I think that everyone should definitely download it, because I've had it since the spring, just saying, so everyone else should download it too. Not that I'm like saying that I'm like ahead of everyone, but
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to download. I mean, you might as well go ahead. We want everybody to have it on their phone. Hopefully you don't have to use it, but if you do, it's right there. It's easy, it's accessible. You can remain anonymous if you want to, and we just want people to have it at their fingertips and to know that it's a resource available out there.
I think it's cool though. I like it, especially with all the kids I talk to. You have some that are very outspoken. They're not scared to say what's on their minds. Went to a lot of presentations where a girl's like, hey, this guy's vaping. But then you have some of those that are very reserved. They really don't want to say much. So that would be a great outlet for them as well. So I think it's I like it a lot.
News 9 did a story the other day, and they used
Or News on 6.
News on
They
6.
interviewed a little 4th grader. And she was, she was like, this is really easy to use. My younger sister could use this.
She was awesome.
It was
I
cute.
need to use her. Yeah, she did a great job, and she was articulating how easy it was for her to go through it. And she said, my younger sister who's 6 could use this. This is really good. Went through there, and so and that's the thing. I mean, they're all very in tune with these phones, iPads, whatever it is, and so they know how to work these and upload pictures and videos. And so, again, it's not just for schools; it's for communities. There's a lot of critical infrastructure in Oklahoma that we all need to be aware of, and so it's for adults alike. We want everybody to report something if they see something suspicious.
You guys cover pretty much everything, so
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think so.
Thank you very much
Yeah,
for
we
having
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah, well, thank you all for, of course, sitting with us and talking with us. It's a great app. I hope that everyone downloads it. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening, whichever one you chose to do. But we hope that you all listen in next time for the next episode.
Awesome.
Thank you.